Hey guys, Programmer53 here. In this video, we're going to learn about FASTA files, one of the most important and heavily utilized file types in bioinformatics. So let's quickly go over the origin and purpose of FASTA files before we actually look at one. Back in 1985, there were two guys, David Lippman and William Pearson, that put together a sequence alignment software package called FASTA. So to use the software package, you would throw files that contained your sequences you wanted to align into the FASTA software package. The software package would execute an alignment of your sequences, presumably against a reference sequence, and spit out an alignment file. The sequence alignment software caught on relatively fast, and people started to realize that the format of the files that contained the sequences was a nice and simple standard that could be used for storing their own sequences. And furthermore, it could be used as a standard input for their own sequence alignment software packages, which started to become much more abundant in the 80s and the 90s. Eventually, these files became known as FASTA files. Okay, so now that we have an understanding of FASTA files and where they originated from, let's take a look at an example FASTA file to dissect and understand the different components of one. So here's an example of what a FASTA file looks like. It's relatively simple compared to some of the other kookier file formats you'll encounter in bioinformatics. In a FASTA file, the first line is going to start off with a greater than character, which is then going to be followed by a description of the sequence below, which we're going to get into in a second. This description, generally in my experience, is kind of composed of two different segments. You have a unique identifier, which is then going to be followed by info about the unique identifier. So in this case, this is the unique identifier, and we can see that this unique identifier is the identifier for the ensemble Sonic Hedgehog gene, which is actually a legitimate gene. That's pretty freaking cool. Gold star for whoever labeled that gene as the Sonic Hedgehog gene. But anyway, the convention that I just kind of went upon, where you have an ID, which is then followed by the info about that ID, is just a convention. It's not necessarily always going to be the case for the description in a FASTA file. This is bioinformatics, the wild west of software engineering. People could probably put an emoji in there and it would still be considered a FASTA or a valid FASTA file. Just be prepared for anything for the description. So after the description, you're going to get a sequence of characters below it, which is going to be representative of a peptide sequence or nucleotide sequence. In this case, we can see that we're looking at a nucleotide sequence because we have the A, C, G, T characters. And the last thing that I want to remark upon for the FASTA file is that, as you can see, so one of the lines for the sequence is limited to 70 or 80 characters. I don't actually know how many characters I have this set on in this particular FASTA file. But it's limited to about 70 or 80 characters, and that's really just for readability purposes. If you wanted to, you could combine all of the text in the sequence on one line, and it would still be considered a valid FASTA file. So in this FASTA file, we're looking at a FASTA file that has one entry. It has, one sequence and one description of that sequence, but most of the time in a FASTA file, you're going to be looking at multiple entries. And so let's quickly take a look at what that looks like. So if you want to have multiple entries in a FASTA file, you're pretty much just utilizing the same pattern that we just went over. Just rinse and repeat, where you have the greater than character, which is then preceded by a description of your sequence below, and then you have the sequence below. And you can just keep repeating this pattern as many times as you need in order to capture all the sequences that you want to store in that FASTA file.